So language learning, and why I think this is arguably one of the best things you can do to become a more capable person. So this is going to be a little bit more of a technical video, but basically just getting straight into it. What is a capable person is, I think, one of the first things we need to address. So a capable person has always needed to be one thing, and that's their ability to evolve. So to evolve is basically to be able to learn hard things in the simplest possible way. If you're going to survive basically in today's world, you need to be able to learn hard things and quickly. And I'm going to talk about a book at the end of this slide that's actually good for that. But with how fast the world is evolving and how jobs and skills are becoming obsolete, you can look that up if you want to find a list of jobs that are going to become obsolete. But basically, we've got AI, we've got other robots, we've got so many other things that are making old jobs and old skills obsolete. And if you can't evolve and become useful again, basically, you're not going to be able to survive in the world. You're not going to be as successful as you'd like. So a capable person is able to thrive in this world by mastering difficult skills in a short period of time and acquiring that wealth of knowledge and that skill set that allows them to practice basically where they want, doing what they want without the threat of obsolescence. Obsolescence basically just means, if you haven't heard the word obsolete before, it's not needed anymore. So skills, for example, if you look at any kind of, well, not all of it, but a lot of factory work before the Industrial Revolution became obsolete with machines, things like a lot of, I think, paperwork and writing out reports and stuff is going to become obsolete very soon with AI. So I don't even think jobs like accounting will really be needed because AI can just do that for us. So it's pretty unfortunate for people that have a lot of jobs where they just have to do the same thing. Any kind of job where it's like the same thing over and over again, you're just repeating that task. I think they're in a lot of danger with the advancing technology, because it's the more simple the process is, the easier it is for AI and technology to replicate it. So having that ability to keep learning new things, and also you can't know for sure. I know I've told you like examples of jobs that go obsolete, but you can't really know for sure what jobs are going to go obsolete. So that's why it's so important to have the skill of being able to evolve and learn new things so you can get back on your feet and not just be, useless basically in society. So two principles that are extremely important to evolution is, one, the ability to quickly master hard things, and two, the ability to produce at an elite level in terms of both quality and speed. What the first one means, the ability to master hard things, is basically to take an area of knowledge or a subject, topic, skill, whatever, and just master it basically as quick as you can. The faster you can do it, speed is basically crucial to anything in life. The faster you can do it, the better the more successful you'll be. If you need to do something and you can't do it, it takes you ages to learn it, that's time wasted that basically you could have been using that skill and achieving it. And the ability to producing is basically where, if you think about it, producing is where all success comes from. Basically, if you're not producing anything, there's nothing for people to judge your work off. You need to have fruits of your labor. You need to have all that kind of thing. Both of these terms, by the way, are from the book Deep Work by Cal Newport, which I would recommend you read. It's a book about a lot of things. It's hard to sum up in one sentence, but it's to do with basically productivity and many other topics. So deep work, which is doing complex cognitive tasks, and focusing in short amounts of time and that kind of thing. It's an excellent book. I really can't sum it up. You should definitely look it up though. So moving on from what a capable person is, I will tie this back to language learning. I promise. This is primarily a language learning channel, but I think this video is especially important for everyone. I think language learning is a good way to get to this, but we'll get to the language learning part later. So why aren't we capable? What does being this capable, evolving person have to do with language learning, basically? So to get to it as quickly as possible, unfortunately, we're not really built or trained to be capable people. Perhaps we once were, and perhaps we still are in some parts of the world, but we're not really this capable person, as I defined on the last slide, where we can just teach ourselves things and become useful and that kind of thing. So this kind of does stem back to, I think it might be a bit unpopular, but I do think it stems back to school. So school exists to basically teach a set list of things, a set list of subjects, and you walk away hopefully with knowledge of that subject to some degree, depending on how well you perform in school. But it doesn't teach you how to teach yourself stuff. At least where I'm from in school, we were never taught. It should be like you get 6 subjects and one of them is not the teaching you how to teach yourself stuff. I think that's more important than anything there, because at the end of the day, they can't account for every single person's individual wants and needs as far as jobs are going to go into, but they can teach you how to teach yourself stuff, which basically fixes that problem, because then everyone can teach themselves the skills they need to know. So arguably that most important skill, call it whatever you want, call it self-improvement, call it self-teaching or whatever, the ability to teach yourself stuff and become a better person is not taught in school. Instead, it kind of conditions you to be given tasks and then resources and taught how to do them. So when you leave school and there's no one to teach you how to do stuff, it's pretty hard to become that capable person, because there's no one spoon feeding you information. Like, I'll give you an example. It's kind of putting myself down, but like sometimes when I have tech issues, I almost kind of give up. That's why doing YouTube is kind of difficult, because there's no one spoon feeding me how to fix it, and unless it pops up on my laptop right in front of me, I almost want to give up on problems. I've tried to train myself not to do that and to actually go on and find how to solve tech issues, because I'm really not good with them. But yeah, that's just an example of how, because I'm not being spoon fed it, I find it hard to do. So I do think this is why most people give up and are kind of lazier than ever, because they're used to being spoon fed, and they're also used to being spoon fed by social media. There's a bunch of other things that go into it. But you basically need to condition yourself, and this is where the language learning comes in. You basically need to condition yourself to be a person who can set their own goals and achieve them, and teach yourself and self-improve. So language learning, tying that in, is I think one of the best ways to actually become the person who can teach themselves really hard things. Well, not even really hard, just teach themselves skills that are crucial and learn them. So moving on to the next slide, if it actually works. Sorry, this is what I mean by me not being good with technology. I can't even push an arrow key. So the link to language learning, you need to recondition yourself as that person who is capable of doing difficult things and teaching themselves things that are important. So potentially, because of how fast technology is evolving, you might have to relearn stuff multiple times in your life, because your old skill set has become obsolete, basically. So say you're some kind of, this is just an example, but say you're some kind of accountant, AI takes over and now your skills aren't needed anymore. You need to learn to do something else. So say you learn some kind of manual labor job, and then in 10 years from there, AI has taken, either AI or whatever, or technology has taken over, and that job isn't, you're not needed for that job anymore, or there's just no demand for that kind of thing. It's kind of supply and demand. Either the demand disappears because, like, for example, if you look at video stores with tapes and not tapes, like renting DVDs, the demand for that completely disappeared with Netflix. So there's the demand aspect that can make it obsolete, or there's also the supply aspect, which is like basically a lot of robots, AI technology kind of things, where they can find cheaper ways to do it, outsourcing that kind of stuff. But it's probably more technological than outsourcing. Those are the kind of things that are going to make jobs obsolete, and you need to learn how to make yourself useful again in different ways by learning. So I went on a bit of a tangent there, sorry, but tying this back to language learning, you can't just say, oh, I'll just learn when I need to. You kind of need to start now and be that person. You're not going to be able to just wait until stuff goes wrong and then teach yourself something for the first time years and years after high school when you haven't been learning. There's a thing called neuroplasticity, which I'll talk about at the bottom of the slide, but the ability for your brain to change and grow. You only really keep that to a high level if you continue to learn. That's what keeps your brain plastered. But if you just stop and try and start all of a sudden, obviously you can still learn, but it's very, very difficult. So yeah, that learning thing is not going to just happen when the time comes, and you'll probably face some kind of crisis if your skill set becomes obsolete and now you have to learn something else. So I would recommend you start now, and I'd recommend you start now by learning a language. Obviously, you can't just learn an occupational skill set like, oh, I'm just going to learn accounting or whatever, and just hope that when my first one goes obsolete, my second one won't. If that makes sense, you should learn something that interests you and is also difficult. So hopefully learning a language interests you. I'm going to go over why it's a good thing at the bottom of the slide. But you should start now by learning a language. It's one of the most rewarding things you can do, and it's actually so rewarding. I'm still in shock, like 10 months after I finished learning Italian, that I can actually learn it, because it's so weird now. So I could never understand it before, and now when I talk or read a book and someone's looking over my shoulder or listening, they don't know what I'm saying. Like, that might sound weird, but it's actually crazy that, like, I can say something now and people that I can talk English to don't know what I'm saying. Like, it's just weird because it makes perfect sense to me. That probably sounds really weird, but for anyone who's experienced learning a language, that shock, it feels so good, because you can just, like, you can say something and it just makes perfect sense and no one can understand. It's just cool. So learning a language teaches you capability, because you must evolve to thrive. It is, all things considered, when people say learning languages is easy and anyone can do it, obviously anyone can do it, but learning languages is incredibly hard. And that's not to say don't do it, it's going to be too hard. It's doable. but it takes a year plus for your first language probably, and it's going to take a lot of time invested. You're going to have to learn so many new things. You're going to most people probably cry at least once. I don't think I ever did. I did break a few things. I'm more of a break things kind of person, but it'll push you. It also teaches you persistence in that pushing, discipline, because you have to keep going even when you don't feel like it. Focus. The more focused you are, the more you'll actually input knowledge into your brain. Productivity. You need to practice your routines and actually sitting down and doing work. Mental dexterity. Dexterity generally means the ability to work with both hands, but it also means the ability to do different things and multitask and that kind of thing. Language learning is very good for all parts of your brain, and it's really good for having to compute different things, especially switching between languages. That mental agility. Memory goes without saying. I don't even need to define that. It also boosts neural plasticity, which is basically, I believe, I'm not a brain expert, but looking into it a little bit because I've heard people talk about it, and a doctor that I know well. It's the ability of your neurons and brain basically to change and adapt, and you have it more before neural pruning and when you're younger, and it generally decreases. Your brain becomes less plastic, which is a bad thing as you get older, not just because of age, but also because people generally stop learning after school, which is a shame because you really don't learn that much, as I've just talked about, in the way of improving yourself and becoming useful. And obviously language will aid you in travel, social circles, work, and even just as a flex on a resume. There's no one that I could meet that wouldn't, even if they were annoying as all crap, if they could tell me they spoke like 5 languages, or not even that many, if they could tell me they spoke 3, and they weren't even, and I could believe them, like they weren't just making it up, they weren't telling a fib, that would still earn my respect even if I didn't like them. So if you can put on your resume, oh yeah, I know, even just 2, like I've got on my resume at the moment 2, I could probably say I know bits and pieces of others, but that's just going to annoy my future employers. But yeah, just even if you say, oh, I can speak 3 languages, there's no one that just won't look at that and go, like, God damn, like, how? Like, because obviously there aren't many people that just grow up and just learn 3 languages in the house. You've obviously taught yourself, and you're a very skilled and disciplined person. So there's really no end to the advantages. People say, oh, language learning will become obsolete. There are so many things that will become obsolete before knowing other languages, just so you know that literally, by the time language learning becomes obsolete, even though it never will because it's good for you as a mental thing, you have to not have a brain. But as far as the actual skill of being able to talk to people in various languages becomes obsolete, so many things like food will be obsolete before then. Probably not, but like any kind of manual labour job, any kind of repetitive job like accounting or anything like that, they will all be obsolete way before language learning. If you think about it, any job that uses a kind of different language, so honestly, maybe even writing music, like just things like that will be obsolete. Any kind of artwork, because technology can just do that better than we can. Like, languages are quite complex. Things that work with simple language, like coding and stuff, I know it's going to offend people who code, but things that work with simpler language are going to become obsolete way before language learning. So don't listen to people say, oh, I'll just use Google Translator. Google Translator is shit for anyone who's actually used it. It just does weird things. It's AI can't replicate languages yet. That's how, even though it can fully take over other fields, it still can't replicate languages properly, which is speaks to how basically important language learning is. But yeah, there's no end to the benefits being able to speak languages brings. I'd stop wasting time and I'd start today. Don't be the person who says, oh yeah, I'll start tomorrow or in a week or whatever, because tomorrow will stay tomorrow. You're never going to end up doing it. So that's basically everything on why I think language learning is so important. Just to sum it up, basically, you need to be a capable person in society, or your skills, when they become obsolete, which all skills will to some extent, you need to be able to learn more and quickly, otherwise you're not going to basically thrive in society. And I think you need to start now to be that person who can learn as well as they can. And the best way I think you can start is with language learning. This is primarily a language learning channel, so I've tried to tie it back to that, but I truly do believe it is one of the best things you can do to keep your brain plastered. That's been proven for however long we've had brain science. Everyone knows learning a language is really good for your brain, and it will keep you. And if you look at all the most intelligent people, there aren't many of them that don't speak other languages. It's just something they generally acquire, whether it's for business or just because they're just intelligent people and they seek out that kind of knowledge. So yeah, that's basically everything on that. I'd just like to say as well at the end of the video, I am working on a website, so if you've ever had problems with language learning, you just don't know what to do, where to start, what resources, the website I'm working on is basically going to have a page with a list of any language you'd want to learn, basically, and I can always add more, where it will have every resource you need in the order I think you should learn them. So you start with basic stuff, greetings, and it will explain all of that for that language. And I'm not talking about general. I mean, if you want to learn Mandarin, you literally click on the Mandarin page, and I'll have a full list of 30 or whatever sources that you need that covers everything in the language. I'm talking websites, blogs, YouTube videos, any kind of explanation, PDFs, anything free. I can find the website's completely free as well. You don't have to pay me a cent. I'm not trying to take your money. This is to help you. So that's basically the website, headofstate.com.au. You'll have a link in the description, but you'd be silly to not use it. It's still being worked on currently, but we've made good progress, and you think you can check it out. Not everything will work, but you can have a look at it. And yeah, I'm doing my best to finish as quickly as possible. Please don't mind the interesting things where it's like insert text here, because I'm not a website person. I hate technology, as I told you before, and I'm still doing this. This is good for my brain as well in learning skills that are important. So I guess you could say I'm doing that as well. But yeah, I checked the website out. I highly recommend it. And thank you for listening. I hope you did learn something from this video, because it does mean a lot to me, that ability to learn new things. And obviously language learning is a passion of mine. So I think everyone should do that. But yeah, that's basically all. Thank you.